Hi, and welcome to this video around Suse Harvester. So Suse Harvester is a way of running virtual machines in your Suse Rancher environment, and today I'll be showcasing how that exactly works. So let's start with looking at the website for Harvester, harvesterhci.io. You can see there's a nice introduction video, and here you can actually see how it works. So as you can see, it's running on nodes. Those nodes run Linux. Then there's KubeVirt and Longhorn, and in turn that runs your virtual machines. So this is not your default hypervisor, right? Normally you'd have like a hypervisor running on the node that runs virtual machines. Here, the first layer on top of the node is actually a layer for containers. And these containers run virtual machines. So a virtual machine gets packed into a container by KubeVirt and then ran as a container while actually being a virtual machine. So in this demo, I'm using the de facto standard installed Longhorn installation to deliver HCI storage. So that's basically, it takes like the local disk from the nodes that I have and it will surface those up as shared storage. And the best of all, this whole thing gets integrated into Rancher. Now jumping into Rancher, so this is an environment, a Rancher environment I already had standing by. So I was already using Rancher. You can see there's this is the local RQ2 cluster. You can see I imported a K3s cluster that I built externally. So that's like a vanilla K3s that I imported into this environment to manage as one. But it's not just containers anymore, right? If I look here, you can see that I now also have this virtualization management. And virtualization management shows me the two clusters that I have installed. So initially I built a virtual Harvester cluster. So in our lab, we have like this large VMware vSphere deployment. So I built Harvester out of virtual machines and actually imported that into Rancher. When it turned out to work really nice and I liked it, I decided to take some nodes and install them as bare metal Harvester. So that's the second cluster. So that's the bare metal Harvester cluster. You can see that I have three hosts. There's one virtual machine running here. There's a VM network defined. There's several images and of course several volumes and disks. So looking at the hosts, you can see that I actually have three physical clusters and you can see they have 72 cores. So these are Dell servers. And basically the way I installed Harvester on them was simply by accessing the iDRAC, mounting an ISO, running through a few steps, and before you know it, you have a Harvester node running. Before you know it, you have three Harvester nodes all bound together in a cluster. So you can see that these are capable right now of running virtual machines. So in this bare metal cluster, I have one /test virtual machine running, as you can see, and of course there's volumes underneath that. So you can see that there's Longhorn, there's an image, and there's an actually Harvester Longhorn disk. So this is the boot disk, and this is the image that I used to install the virtual machine. So if I go into the virtual Harvester, you can see that, so the reason I go here is because I pre-uploaded an image here for a Windows virtual machine. You can see that sitting here. Right? If I need a new one, I can simply say create, then I can select a name, file, and I can browse for an ISO and just upload it into the environment. So this time I preloaded a Windows server environment. And basically all that I need to do now, if I want to deploy that as a virtual machine, is I go to virtual machines. At the moment, I don't have any. So I'm going to create a new virtual machine. I'm going to leave the namespace as default. I'm going to name this Windows test machine. I'm going to give it 4 CPUs. I'm going to give it 16 gigs of memory. And then I move into volumes. Of course, the first one is that I'll need the ISO image. So that's actually disk 0. And then I'm going to add a volume that's actually going to be of the disk type. And I'm going to make that, well, let's make it, I don't know, 40 gigs. I'm going to select setup for this. And then basically that's all I need to create the machine. I can go on and say, okay, so let's go through the management network. I can have bridge or masquerade. I'm going to leave that at default, and then I'm going to basically deploy. After, of course, I fix this. So now you can see that there's a Windows VM starting. So basically what's happening now is the volume is being carved out of Longhorn. That's being surfaced up into the Kubernetes layer. Then KubeVirt actually takes the image, builds an empty shell virtual machine inside a container, mounts the Longhorn volume, or actually both volumes, so the ISO and the disk volume, to it, and then basically starts the virtual machine that's actually running inside a container. So as you can see, it now entered the running state. So as it's running, I should be able to access the console. So I'm just going to open it in WebVNC. And there you go, right? It's a running installation of Windows. There we go. So as you can see, so this will progress, and finally it will install the Windows in a virtual machine. So as you can see, this will complete a Windows installation. So there's a Windows virtual machine running on a container on a node here. I won't actually go into the full installment because there's something more interesting to be seen. And that is the capability of actually deploying container clusters on top of Harvester. So close this down. So when I go into cluster management, so we're now moving back into the world of containers, you can see my container clusters that are there at the moment. When I say create a new one, now you can see where I can create my Kubernetes cluster. And actually Harvester has become an option. So I can actually use Harvester to deploy maybe an ephemeral cluster. So all I need to do is basically say, well, select the credentials where you authenticate to a Harvester cluster. So I have the virtual and the bare metal one. I'm going to go with the bare metal one. I'm going to give it a name. So this is going to be like an RKE2 thing that I'm going to do. I'm going to give it a pool name. So that's pool 1. Right now I have a machine count of 1 with all of the roles, which basically means if I deploy it like this, I will get a single node that has all of the roles. But if you want to build something bigger, you could say, no, I don't want the worker nodes, worker functionality to live next to etcd and control plane. So I'm going to create 3 machines that are going to do etcd and a control plane, but not workers. So at the moment I have 3 etcds, 3 control plane, 0 workers. So let's beef them up a bit. Right, this should be enough. I can leave the namespace, default is fine. Any admin user, the image, I've prepared a / image that will be hosting the RKE2. Then basically I'm going to be adding a volume, just 1, to give it some disk space to install on. Let's make that like 30. You can see that by default the source class is Harvester Longhorn, which we're using for this demo. Select the network. We're going to go with the default VM network. And I think that's it for the control plane nodes, right? You can see I can't create yet. Why? Because I have control plane nodes, but I don't have worker nodes. So what I need to do is click the plus here. And now I'm getting into pool 2. Where is it? Pool 2. We'll give that some more space to work with because these will be the worker nodes, right? So now I specify these will only be worker nodes, and I'm going to do 3 of those. So now I should get like 3 control plane nodes with etcd and 3 separate worker nodes. So with that, I think I'm complete. Oh, except for one thing, because I need to add a cloud config. So when I look here I have a cloud config, and what I need to add is this that will actually give me a username and password for the system. Now I can go on and create. So yeah, there we go. You can see that RKE2 test is being built. So 0 out of 6 at the moment. So it's actually deploying on top of Harvester right now, this environment. So if I move back into virtualization management and I go into the bare metal Harvester where I deployed it, I should be able to see virtual machines. And as you can see, it's building out, right? It's starting all of the different pools. So for pool 1 and pool 2, so these are the control plane nodes and pool 2 are the worker nodes. And before you know it, you have a working RKE2 environment or a working K3S environment. You can build, destroy them all on top of Harvester if you want to. So basically that's something really cool that Rancher is really integrating the world of virtual machines and the world of containers all into a single platform. So that concludes our demo for today. Thank you for watching and watch out for the next one. Bye bye.